Welcome back, Design Junkies, to Mechanical Engineering Made Simple. If the podcast brings you value, help support the show with a like, a follow, or leave a comment below. All right, let's jump right in. Today on the Workbench, we're tackling a 4-part curriculum that answers the absolute most highly searched questions out there about sanitary system design. We're going to cover 1. Choosing the right stainless, 2. Perfecting the surface finish, 3. Navigating joints and welds, and 4. Multi-use versus single-use systems. Section 1. Choosing the right stainless. Now, you might be wondering, why exactly do we default to such specific materials when we're designing for hygienic manufacturing? Well, it really just comes down to strict definitions. You see, stainless steel isn't just one single thing. It's actually an entire family of iron-based alloys. But here is the kicker, the absolutely non-negotiable part. It has to contain a minimum of 10.5% chromium. That chromium reacts with oxygen to build this passive oxide layer right on the surface of the metal. It's literally like a microscopic, invisible shield that naturally fights off corrosion and keeps our entire system completely safe from those super harsh fluids. Because of that shield, this baseline material is basically the industry standard. Folks often call it the value option since it delivers this incredible built-in resistance to the brutal chemicals and super hot steam we use in sanitary processing. But, and this is a massive caveat for any engineer tuning in, the raw material you pick is truly only as good as the surface finish you apply to it. Seriously, you could go out and buy the absolute highest performance alloy on the market, but if the surface isn't physically prepped the exact right way, it's going to fail. No doubt about it. Which brings us directly to a super highly searched, honestly pressing engineering question. How do we actually prevent surface contamination? To answer that, we need to shift gears a bit. We're going to transition from the macro level of picking the material right down to the microscopic mechanics of today's explainer. Bringing us to Section 2, perfecting the surface finish. Okay, to keep these systems totally sanitary, we have to actually physically measure and then modify the metal itself. First, we measure the surface using this neat tool called a profilometer. Basically, it drags a tiny little stylus across the metal, mapping out all the microscopic peaks and valleys along its path. Once we know the exact roughness, we apply treatments to fix it. A huge game-changing technique in hygienic design is electropolishing. This is a highly controlled electrochemical process. It uses an acid electrolyte and direct current to selectively melt away just the very top layer of the metal. It smooths out those microscopic peaks and valleys until the surface is practically a mirror. And look, a smoother surface simply means fewer microscopic hiding spots for bacteria or leftover product. Makes sense? But hey, what happens when things go wrong? Let's walk through the common surface defects that engineers are constantly troubleshooting out on the floor. First off, you might spot discoloration from the intense heat of welding, or pitting, which are basically these tiny little voids caused by a localized loss of the base material. But honestly, the absolute biggest headache, that's rouge. Rouge is just a general industry term for a whole variety of reddish-brown iron oxide discolorations that pop up in high-purity systems. We break it down into 3 classes. Class 1 rouge is loosely adhered particulate rouge. It's usually just traveling from somewhere else in the piping. Class 2 is localized rouge. This stuff tightly sticks to the surface exactly where that passive layer broke down. And then there's Class 3, or high-temperature rouge. This forms a nasty, black, crusty layer specifically in hot steam systems. Let me tell you, managing these 3 classes through proper finishing and chemical passivation is a massive part of your day-to-day job as a hygienic designer. Let's keep moving. Section 3, navigating joints and welds. So now that we've got a perfectly smooth surface, we have to actually put the pieces together, right? But we got to do it without introducing any contamination traps. Remember, every single time you join 2 pipes, you're introducing a risk. So we've got 2 main categories of joints to look at. First up, permanent joints. In this world, that usually means autogenous orbital welds. This is where an automated machine perfectly and consistently melts and fuses the metals together, without even adding a consumable insert or filler. It gives you this rigid permanence and a highly sanitary, perfectly flush internal surface. The second category? Non-permanent joints. Look, sometimes systems just have to be taken apart for maintenance or reconfiguration. For that, we use mechanical force seals and gasketed sanitary clamp unions. The real engineering trick here with non-permanent joints is that your flat gaskets must sit substantially flush with the pipe interior. You absolutely cannot have them intruding into the fluid path or creating a gap. Getting the sizing right on these components is absolutely vital. For instance, let's look at standard tubing dimension analysis. A really common size you're going to encounter all the time is a 1 1/2 outer diameter tube. When you're matching up your pipes, hygienic clamps, and gaskets for a 1 1/2 outer diameter system, let me warn you, those dimensional tolerances are incredibly tight. If your dimensions are even slightly off, your gasket could overcompress right into the flow stream. Or even worse, it might not compress enough, which creates this tiny, almost invisible crevice. And a crevice? Yeah, that is just the tip of the iceberg. I always warn junior engineers about the absolute worst-case scenario in any piping layout, the dreaded dead leg. A dead leg is a space where your system design results in insufficient fluid flow. Just picture a flow-through T with a blind cap that extends just a bit too far. When you've got poor joint design or unnecessary pipe branches, you end up creating these stagnant little pools. Because the main fluid flow isn't actively washing through that branch, biological and chemical hazards literally thrive there. Bacteria can just colonize the dead leg and continuously reinfect the main system stream. So designing these out of your piping runs, it's fundamental, absolutely crucial. Which brings us to our final topic, Section 4, multi-use versus single-use. This highlights a massive operational trade-off that modern facilities are facing today. Traditionally, we've designed these heavy-duty stainless steel multi-use systems. They are built like tanks, meant to withstand repeated rigorous clean-in-place and steam-in-place cycles. You invest a ton of money up front in the metal and that flawless surface finish. Also, you can just blast it with harsh detergents and high-temperature steam over and over again without taking it apart. But the industry is actually shifting heavily towards single-use systems. These rely on disposable polymeric materials. Think flexible bags, aseptic connectors, and thermoplastic tubing. You use the setup exactly once, and then you dispose of it. You completely skip the steam cleaning, which saves massive amounts of water and energy. However, your engineering priority completely flips. Instead of stressing out about preventing corrosion, your main focus becomes biocompatibility. You have to meticulously manage extractables and leachables, making absolutely sure the plastic itself isn't shedding chemical compounds into your pristine product. It's essentially a completely different way of solving the exact same problem. As the industry races toward more complex biologics, the big question remains: will the heavy-duty permanence of stainless steel eventually become obsolete? Or will the plastic waste of single-use systems force us back to the traditional ways? Remember, design junkies, master the critical few or the trivial many will master you. If you're leaving this episode with something you didn't arrive with, drop a comment. Takes you a few seconds, but it tells me this workbench is worth keeping open.